Welcome back to another episode of the Field of 68's off-season grades. My name is Rob Dauster. I'm joined today by the Norwegian sniper himself, none other than Terrence Oglesby. And we're going to be breaking down the Creighton Blue Jays, a team that has a chance to be a top 10-ish, 12-ish, top 15 kind of team in college basketball this year, and a team that you said yesterday when we recorded the DTF podcast that you think is 1A and 1B with UConn at the top of the Big East this season. Real quick, just an update on the roster. Trey Alexander is gone and Baylor Shireman is gone. No two ways about it. Those are massive losses for Creighton. But they brought in Pop Isaacs. They get back Stephen Ashworth. They added Fedor Zugic, who may or may not be eligible this season. We'll talk about him in a little bit. But the big news, T.O., Ryan Kalkbrenner is back for his 38th year of college basketball, one of the most underappreciated stars in the sport and maybe the best defender in the sport this season. Talk to me about the Creighton Blue Jays and what this roster looks like, T.O.
You lose two studs, make no mistake about it. But I really like the addition of Pop Isaacs and what he was able to do at Texas Tech. I love the guard tandem of him and Stephen Ashworth together. Even if Pop doesn't shoot it great, that allows Stephen Ashworth to get off the ball a little bit, and you create that kind of movement. You have a penetration guy with Pop and some of the creative things that he's able to do with the ball in his hands. It all comes down to Ryan Kalkbrenner, though. I mean, what he's able to do on the defensive end of the floor. He's a three-time Big East Defensive Player of the Year. In my opinion, he should be Big East preseason Player of the Year, and he should follow it all the way through. I've never seen a 7-footer in north of 7 feet not foul at the same rate as he. He controls everything during the game. And if you want to look no further, watch Creighton with him on the floor over the last 2 years and with him not on the floor over the last 2 years. And it's a huge difference. He controls everything, and they're going to have shooting around him. And then the addition to Zugic is going to be huge if he's going to be deemed eligible, which I have questions about. But all of that being said, it's that roster fits together nicely. And I like the fact that they're going after freshmen a little bit. They're bringing in three freshmen then this year. Sterling Knox redshirted last year. The power is going to go back in the hands of the freshmen. Development's going to become key after this COVID season. So I like Creighton getting ahead of the curve a little bit there with two guys that are in the top 100 in ESPN, and then Ty Davis, who's also a nice player. So interested to see how they do this year, but I very much expect them to be top of the Big East again.
All right, I want to elaborate on the Ryan Kalkbrenner point because I think we talked about this. We're recording this on Friday, September 6th. We talked about this on Wednesday when we did an episode of the DTF podcast. Ryan Kalkbrenner's impact offensively is something that I don't think people quite realize, right? The last 3 years, Creighton's been a top 25 defense on KenPom each of those 3 seasons. And that's been when Ryan Kalkbrenner has been the defensive player of the year in the Big East all 3 years. His freshman season, they were 32nd in KenPom nationally. Prior to his arrival at Creighton, Greg McDermott had never had a team that ranked inside the top 45 in adjusted defensive efficiency, and only 2 of his teams ranked inside the top 58, right? He was mostly in that like 70 to 120 range in terms of adjusted defensive efficiency before Kalkbrenner got there. He's changed everything for them. He doesn't foul. He's one of the best rim protectors that you're going to find in the sport, and he allows Creighton's perimeter defenders to, let's just say, not necessarily all be Stephen Castle, right?
Yeah.
And it still works defensively. He impacts the game. If you know what you're looking at, you realize he impacts the game as much as anybody in college basketball.
But he's the ultimate safety net.
Mm-hmm.
Because what happens when Creighton likes to play fast, and especially off the initial push, I understand like they slow it down some. Their pace of play isn't huge, but it's always the first 6 seconds when you're playing against Creighton defensively. After that, Greg McDermott gets in his bag a little bit, but you have to get that early push stopped. And if you're trying to enforce that tempo, you can get out and do a couple more things, and you can be a little bit more risk-taking team with Kalkbrenner back in the back, just sitting there waiting on you. So it's not just like shot blocking as a help side defender. His pick and roll defense is phenomenal too, because he's so big and so long that he just kind of controls everything inside of 15 feet. And if you try to pull up with a 3 off the dribble, he's so big he can get out there and contest without fouling. So He's special in that aspect, and I don't know that we've appreciated him enough.
Yeah, and
Well,
yeah,
we have
we
here at the
have.
Field of 68. I
It
think
is
the
it is
general
funny
public
though.
hasn't taken care of understanding how good Kalkbrenner's been over the past 4 years.
It is funny because you're 100% correct, and I tweeted something about that on Thursday, the day before we're recording this, and I just so happened to to spell his last name AR instead of ER at the end, and I got absolutely destroyed by Creighton fans who were like, "This is obvious. This is why he doesn't get appreciated. No one knows how to spell his name."
They'll
My
live.
bad. It's a typo. I got fat thumbs. Okay, it is what it is. No, just like to elaborate on your point, like he's exceptional at the defensive things that come down to like just positioning, right? Like he knows where he needs to be when he's playing drop coverage. He knows exactly where to be and how to get vertical to be able to contest without fouling, right? To just kind of go up. And then all of a sudden you're shooting over the Great Wall of Omaha. Do we have to call him that now?
The Great Wall of Omaha.
Yeah. The Great
I
Wall
like
of
that.
Omaha. Yeah. No, but him and Donovan Clingan have very similar attributes in terms of their size, the way that they can kind of just they figured out how to be able to get in the way without
Mm-hmm.
having it be a foul. And when you're 7'1" with his wingspan, like that's kind of all you really have to do defensively. I
Just
want
be
to
down
talk.
there and exist.
Yes, basically.
Yeah.
I want to talk about them offensively as well. I think Kalkbrenner's ability to step out and shoot it a little bit the last couple seasons
Yeah.
has been a threat that has added more to the Creighton offense. And I think that McDermott, when it comes to scheming up open threes for guys like Stephen Ashworth, for guys like Pop Isaacs this season, for Fedor Zugic when he's finally able to get eligible, for someone
Big
like a
if.
Nathan Miller,
Big if.
yeah. But
Big if.
even last year for like Baylor Shireman and Trey Alexander, like
Sure.
he is as good as anybody when it comes to that. He's been doing it for 15 years there at Creighton, right? My question with this group, and I'm curious your take on this, is that without Trey and without Baylor, they are losing a lot of the guys that they had that could make something happen when you couldn't get a good shot out of the shit that Greg McDermott drew up, right? You're losing your end of shot clock guy, Trey Alexander. You're losing your stud in Baylor Shire. I had one coach in the Big East tell me Baylor Shireman was the best basketball player they played last year, point blank period, anybody that they saw, right? And I think losing some of that individual shot creation
Mm-hmm.
is something that will be a big loss. And I am not convinced that Pop Isaacs is going to be anywhere near as good as look. I love Pop,
No, nobody's
but
going.
he's not
Zugic has a
Baylor.
chance to be. Yeah,
You
Zugic
think
has a
Zugic
chance to
can?
be.
Okay.
He can be as good, probably scoring the basketball and playing off the basketball as Shireman. I think where Shireman's value really was on the boards, because like being 6'7" ish, like he could get up there, get 7, 8 rebounds a game. They're going to have to replicate that. That's what scares me. I think you can scheme up ways for Pop Isaacs to go against a defense that's not set, whether it be closeouts, whether it be something like that. Jemiah Neal, who's a really good athlete, you can scheme up some ways for them to use their explosiveness and get downhill. So that doesn't worry me as much, especially if Creighton's not playing against a set defense. And I also have enough faith in Greg McDermott to where he's going to be able to set some wrong ways, get guys going fast downhill, and they're going to shoot it well enough to where we know the floor is going to be open. To me, it really comes down to, is Pop Isaacs going to be first year at Texas Tech Pop Isaacs, where he's shooting the ball really, really well, or at 37.8%, or is he going to be last year's Pop Isaacs, where he was at 29? That's a massive swing. So, like, especially in this type of offense, I think Pop can do it. I think he's going to have a great year. And just being able to play on the floor with so many different offensive weapons, I think is going to be a massive point. I think offensively, they're going to be fine. It's just, where does it come from? Where do you get extra rebounding from? Like that's what scares me more than anything. It's going to have to be rebounding as a group. It can't just be one guy.
Yeah, I would tend to believe we're going to see a little bit closer to the efficiency numbers of freshman year Pop, mostly because I think as a sophomore he had to do a lot of stuff himself, so the difficulty of the shots that he was taking went up. Like he played with Devion Harmon, Kevin O'Banner, and Jalen Tyson,
Yep.
with Fardaw's Amac as the five, the year that he was a
Really
freshman
good.
at Texas
Yep.
Tech. So like he was kind of like all right, I'm going to stand out here, I'm going to catch it, I'm going to shoot it when you throw it to me, as opposed to being like, all right, now I got to do something to be able to create this shot for myself. What about his impact, right? Like when it comes to the transfer additions, I think he's up there as one of the most impactful because of the movement shooting, because of the floor spacing. I think he's tougher than people realize. I think,
Pop Isaacs,
yeah, I wouldn't call him a
tougher
great,
than a $2 steak.
yeah, I wouldn't call him like a great defender because he has some physical limitations, but like he's got this, like the ticker is going to make sure that he's putting in the effort on that.
Yeah, he just found ways to do winning things when he was on the floor at Texas Tech. In year two, first year of a new head coach, like you got to have somebody that competes. Pop Isaacs competes, and I just love the blend of him and Stephen Ashworth. Like you would assume that they get along really, like they would play together really well. One supreme elite shooter who's willing to give the ball up in transition, knowing he's going to get it back. The ball movement, the ability to play with Kalkbrenner on the outside, and then having those two on one side of the floor, like the possibilities are endless with those guys because they're both threats if Pop Isaacs can shoot it. But I think his impact on the ball is going to be the biggest thing. And whenever they're playing with speed, I mean, Pop Isaacs finds creases. That's what he can do. Now, if a guy's sitting in front, is he going to rock him to sleep and play one-on-one? Maybe, but I don't think
You don't
McDermott's
want
ever going to
that.
put him in that point, put him in that kind of situation. So there's always going to be movement. There's always going to be an advantage somewhere. And I have faith that he's going to be able to figure those things out.
Last thing, Stephen Ashworth, one of the issues that he had last year was when he was going up against bigger, longer, more athletic dudes, finding ways to be able to create and even just kind of get the ball into offense in those situations. Second year in the Big East, do you think it's going to be a little bit better? He's now a fifth-year senior. I think that's the one red flag I have for this backcourt is do they have someone that can allow you to get in a position where you're running your offense from the 3-point line as opposed to 35 feet away from the rim. If you haven't heard by now, we have partnered with BetMGM Sportsbook. We are going to be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners, the viewers of the Field of 68 throughout the year. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, you can use bonus code FIELD, and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. The best part, all you need to do is deposit and bet $10 of your own hard-earned money to be eligible. Here's how you make it work. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using that bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure that you use that bonus code FIELD when you sign up. BetMGM is going to have some fun offers available throughout the NBA playoffs. Bet insurance tokens, odds boost, and what I love, a nice parlay boost or two from time to time, as well as a ridiculous array of player prop bets for any sport that you could possibly imagine betting on. BetMGM is and always will be the king of the prop bet. So go download the BetMGM app, use the bonus code FIELD, and sign up today. And while I've got you, a quick request. The best way to support the Field of 68 content that you get for free is to engage with us. Rate and review the podcast. Like and share the YouTube videos. Tell your friends about us. It all helps in a world where the algorithm is king. And now, back to the show.
Yeah, I think Ashworth is going. He is what he is. He's a short shooter that can really fill it up, and he's going to space the floor. And just him being on the floor is an advantage for your team. So, is he going to have trouble with better athletes that have a lot of length? Sure, that's always going to be the case. I'm not sure that's something that he's going to be able to negate. But at the same time, like he's going to have opportunities throughout the course of that offense and how they run their things and how they play in transition to where I'm not worried about him getting his shots because they're going to have enough weapons on the floor for that to happen.
Yep. I would say that Mason Miller is going to be a little bit of an X factor here. I would say that the presence of Jackson McAndrew, who I think has a chance to be a really good player down the road for Creighton. I don't know what he's going to be this year. He's a 6'9" combo forward that can really, really, really shoot it. And I think that Isaac Trout at the 4 spot, like there's a lot of questions I have with the way
I think
that
Isaac Trout's a good player. I
yeah,
think he
but
just needs to get off the bench a little bit.
Yeah, but like you have a couple of like natural fours as opposed to more what you would consider like a small ball four, or like, does that make sense? Which is where I'm going to ask you about Fedor Zugic. Can you just kind of break down this guy's game a little bit for starters? And then we'll kind of get into the eligibility discussion, because I think there's two factors to him being the biggest X factor in the Big East to me. It's one, is he going to play? We'll talk about that in a second. And two, can you kind of fit him into a lineup at the four spot if you needed to, alongside Jemiah Neal, Pop Isaacs, and Stephen Ashworth?
He fits great wherever you want to play him. Like he averaged 10 points a game in the top league in Germany, and he's played almost 200 professional games. There is a big difference between the German professional league and the Big East as far as skill is concerned, as far as scouting is concerned. And there's great coaches in the Big East, but it's just different. And I wherever you want to put him, they needed some firepower at the wing. If he's able to get eligible, like, he's going to be a really good player, not just a really good, an all conference level player. And I think the problem with me talking about him is I understand what's happening over there because I played in Europe for 8 years. I'm Norwegian. I was born in Norway. My wife is Swedish. I spend every summer in Europe understanding the European game. This is not a college player. So, that being said, if they're able to wave a magic Creighton wand and get this guy eligible, they are right there with UConn. So you wanted to talk about a swing guy. You talked about Mason Miller. If Zugic gets eligible, Creighton can win the league. Do I think he's going to get eligible? If anybody knows what they're talking about, they're going to say no. If they don't know what they're doing and they're able to pull the wool over their eyes and get this guy to play college basketball, they could very well win the Big East. That's your swing player. So we're talking about grades all the time. With Zugic, if he's able to play, it's an A. It's not an A. It might even be an A plus. If he's not able to play, you still have some wing issues. I'm going to give you a B plus. So, like, this is kind of where I'm at with this Creighton team. Zugic is that good. He is that good of a player. I'm going to leave it at that. And Creighton fans, you can get mad at me all you want. This is a professional basketball player coming over and trying to get eligible for college. There's issues here. So curious to see how it moves forward. If he's able to play, Creighton is damn good. If he's not able to play, they're still very good, but more in that 2, 3, 4 area in the Big East.
Yeah, I literally have the exact same thing written down when it comes to X factors. I think you might be a little bit higher on Zugic than I am. I'm not sure he's quite an all.
He averaged 12 points a game in Euro Cup.
No, look, I trust
in
me.
Euro Cup competition. This isn't a domestic league. This is when they go throughout Europe. Average 12 points a game. Are you trying to tell me he won't average 12 to 15 points a game in the Big East?
No, I think that he will. I'm just saying. I don't know if he's going to be
with a couple of 30 boys in there. Just throw them in there.
You might be right, man. Maybe you're right. Maybe I should be listening to your takes on.
It's a high level of basketball. It's a high level of basketball in Germany, and it's a high level.
How do you think Caleb Murphy would do playing in the German Bundesliga, the top level?
Depends. They're the same age. He probably would. He wouldn't. Let me say this: he wouldn't be as good as Zugic was last year in the Bundesliga, playing in Euro Cup. Like,
fair enough. Listen, I'm with you on all of that, right? I'm with you on Zugic being. I think there's an argument to be made. He's the single biggest X factor in the Big East.
He's the biggest eligibility question mark in the country.
Yes, and I think that when it comes to winning the league, here's the interesting thing about the top of the Big East and specifically UConn this year. When it comes to the roster that they have put together, I think you can make the argument that on paper, Creighton with Zugic looks better. I think you can make the argument that on paper,
I agree.
What Xavier's put together looks better, right? When it comes to UConn, what you're betting on is that Dan Hurley is going to take some of these guys and turn them into the studs that he's had in past season. Whether that
is this a UConn grade?
No. What I'm saying is you're betting on him finding a way to make everybody on UConn the best that they can possibly be, because he's done it for 2 straight years at that program.
Guys, you're giving UConn the benefit of the doubt at the beginning of the year
Yes.
just because they won 2 national championships.
That is what you're basically
yeah.
saying. Dan Hurley's going to figure it out with these dudes because there's some talent on that roster. He likes his team and he does what he does. But when it comes to just picking rosters against each other, like, it's very hard to not sit there and say like Creighton is as good, if not better, than Creighton, than UConn, especially with Zugic. And I'm saying that as a guy that has a UConn picture literally right there on my wall of Khalid El-Amin, assigned to signed Sports Illustrated top dogs, whatever. So I'm with you on that. Without him, I think that it's a little bit more of a question. I think the concerns about the wing play. I think the concerns about
without him, you're talking about Zugic. Just to
Zugic. Without him, I think we're talking a little bit about more of like a top 20-ish kind of a team, a tournament team, can win a game. If they have a good run, they can get to the second weekend. But I think that they are, without him, they're kind of in that same conversation as Xavier, maybe St. John's, maybe Providence. I don't think I'm missing anybody off the top of my head, but I think it's a little bit more of a conversation. But with him, they're going to have a chance to be really, really damn good.
They're going to be Final Four good with him.
Wow, you're all in.
Yeah,
you know what's funny?
They're Final Four good with him. I don't think they're going to get him. But hey, and by the way, anybody has a problem with me saying this, you can reach me. You know where to find me. You have a problem, reach to me. You're fine. He probably shouldn't play college basketball, but if he does, Creighton's going to be really freaking good.
Yeah. We're recording this on Friday, September 6th. I'm not exactly sure what day.
9:11 a.m.
9:11 a.m.
Oglesby's in South Carolina.
No.
I have nothing to do with
what I'm going to say is
Creighton fans attack him.
I'm not sure exactly when this episode is going to drop because we still have a couple in the queue that have already been recorded. What I will say is that as of right now, I think that he will be eligible at some point. I think he's going to miss some games. And I think it's going to be similar to the Big Z situation that we saw at Kentucky last season, where there's going to be a lot of questions about it. And then somewhere in the middle of the year, he's going to end up being deemed eligible to play, is what I think the most likely outcome is here. But in terms of, this is a tough one for off-season grades. So let's just operate as if Zugic is going to play at some point this season. You're giving him an A+.
A+.
All right. I'm giving him an A- with the caveat that if he doesn't play, to me, it's closer to a mid to low B. Getting Kalkbrenner back.
I'm going solid. I'm going B+ because I really like Pop Isaacs and his potential with McDermott. I thought Neal was a good addition, and I like the freshmen that they're bringing in. I think they're really talented.
I do too.
So I'm going B+ without him.
All right. Ryan Kalkbrenner, preseason first team All-American. Not quite.
If he's not there, he's certainly on the second team.
Yeah, he's one of the 7 guys for me that are legitimately in the mix for first team All-American.
Yep.
3 of them happen to be centers, which makes it a little bit complicated. So, all right, T.O., fun catching up, fun talking about Creighton, fun letting you get off your rant here.
We're not done. We're not done.
Sometimes it just feels good. We're going to be recording a couple more of these. We have, I think, 35 up on the channel right now, off-season grades. We got a couple more coming out. We're going to be recording 45 of these in total to get you ready for the college basketball season, which is creeping up, man. We are now officially 60 days away from the Field of 68 opening day showcase, first Division I college basketball game of the season, right here on the Field of 68. Keep it locked in. Make sure you subscribe, rate, review, do all the things that make us happy as podcasters. Terrence Oglesby, the Norwegian Sniper. Appreciate you being here, man.